Today I'm excited to explain to you the main cause of depression and how to cure depression. Depression is caused by conditioned fears, working in conjunction to limit one's thinking and behavior. Fear is a survival mechanism. It creates avoidance behavior of a perceived danger. These fears apparently transcend our thinking and are programmed literally into our DNA. Consider, fear stimulates adrenaline. And this same adrenaline could actually cause a chain reaction, which basically embeds a fear into your DNA. It causes your behavior to become automatic at that point. What we're basically doing with conditioned fear is programming our DNA, and so that depression is not a behavior you can just eradicate through necessarily therapy or even pharmaceuticals. It's rooted in conditioned fears. And these are acquired through over the years, and they accumulate, and they don't necessarily go away. So, research has shown recently that mushrooms have been able to extinguish conditioned fears. Furthermore, it's not just, again, in your thinking, it's removing it from your DNA. There's literal evidence now that this is an epigenetic change caused by one dose of a psychedelic substance. Compound could last up for 5 weeks. It creates a synaptic plasticity, and throughout that neuroplasticity, part of that process is involved is changing the chromatin in your DNA, which results in removing a conditioned fear. So if you think about all of these fears working again in your brain, they work together to limit your behavior. And ultimately, depending on your culture, your sex, gender, and all of this, you're dealing with these fears is going to manifest itself, perhaps, schizophrenia, depression and anxiety, bipolar. I think these are all reactions to this conditioned fear. So invariably, the trick here is going to be using these psychedelic substances to remove these conditioned fears. And thereby would be probably the pathway to removing depression, which again is pretty amazing, right? And could it be that simple? I don't know. Let's take a look at the research. All right, you can see here, prolonged epigenetic and synaptic plasticity alterations following single exposure to a psychedelic in mice. This was conducted by Mario de la Fuente, Rivenga, and the rest of the crew here. You can check out their names and read through it. It looks like it took place, they were mostly all in Virginia. So there is corresponding authors. You can take a look at it. So here we go. This is the most important part. These are the results here. Clinical evidence suggests a potential therapeutic effect of classic psychedelics for the treatment of depression. The most outstanding and distinct characteristic is the rapid and sustained antidepressant action with one single exposure to the drug. However, the biological substrates and key mediators of psychedelics' enduring action remain unknown. Here, we show that a single administration of the psychedelic DOI, which is similar to LSD, produced fast-acting effects on frontal cortex, dendritic spine structure, and acceleration of fear extinction via the 5-HT2A receptor. Additionally, a single dose of DOI led to changes in chromatin organization, particularly at enhancer regions of genes involved in synaptic assembly that stretch for days after the psychedelic exposure. DOI-induced alterations in neuronal epigenome overlapped with genetic loci associated with schizophrenia, depression, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Together, these data support the notion that epigenetic-driven changes in synaptic plasticity operate as the mechanistic substrate of psychedelics' long-lasting antidepressant action, but also warn on the limitations in individuals with underlying risk for psychosis. To go over that whole research, it's 35 pages, it's very technical, and it is based on mice, and they go through all of their procedures, and essentially it's not that interesting to talk about or read through, but it is on your own. I'm telling you, I'm just going to try to, me to talk about it is not interesting. It's very technical, but the idea essentially is that there are genetic changes that occur that are associated with removing conditioned fear. And invariably, I think that's the biggest association. if you think about it in your own life, especially in our society here, we're bombarded with fear all the time. And so, for example, a lot of the younger generation have been hit with global warming or climate change, and they've been hearing that their whole lives. And this type of fear, it just grows. It doesn't go away, and it gets beat into you. So if you can start to remove these fears, you're going to change your behavior, especially lots of social phobias and stuff. This is definitely people who can say, gosh, you know what? I used to be like this and I'm not anymore. What happened to me? Well, you've accumulated a lot of fears, and a lot of it is part of your survival instincts. So it's really hard for us to decide what fears are worth putting into our DNA to pass on to our children, you know, and which you want to let go. We need fear to survive, but we don't need all this conditioned fear. So I encourage you to do your own research, look into this, but I think this is some groundbreaking ideas of that'll change how we approach depression and these mental illnesses. Thanks for listening. Please pass it on if you think it's meaningful too. Thank you.